So I have, let's see, about 10 or 11 guavas here. These are the Tikal guavas. They're pink in color. And I'm going to cut them into small pieces, not very tiny, and cook them with about half a cup of water just to soften up the pulp so I can strain out the seeds. So let me chop this up and then I'll start cooking it. So I have about 5 cups of this cut up guava. So I cut it and measured it. We are not going to use the 5 cup measurement anyway, because once this is softened, I'm going to strain the pulp through a sieve, separate out the seeds, and then based on the amount of quantity of pulp that we get, that's what's going to decide the amount of sugar and the lemon juice that I'm going to add to this. And then I will move on to cooking the jam. So the very first step is just to cook this for about 10-15 minutes till the guavas get nice and soft. And I have added half a cup of water to this pan, and I'm just going to cook it till it comes to a boil. Turned on the heat, and I'm going to cook this till it softens nicely so that I can separate the pulp. And I'm going to keep stirring it, but also cover the pot while it's cooking so it cooks faster. So I've cooked it for about 5 minutes and it's very fragrant. As you can see, the pulp is starting to separate from the slices of the guava. So this is it. I'm going to just turn the heat off and then I will strain it. I've poured out the pulp into the sieve and it's still hot. I'm just going to press it through, and as you can see, it's really easy. It's super soft now, so the skin also gets pushed through. Whatever will remain, which is basically going to be the seeds and some fibers, I will discard those. So I'm about halfway through straining the pulp, and I have a beautiful pink colored pulp here. So for the last part, I just switched to using my hand, and as you can see, all the pulp is out. You can only see some fiber and seeds and thick skin that's left behind. So I'm going to discard this now. And the latter part of the pulp puree was more yellow because the skins were also getting pushed out, but this is still going to yield a very nice pink color for a jam. So I'm going to incorporate all of this into my pulp and proceed with the next step. So I have 3.5 cups of guava pulp here, and I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of lemon juice for each cup. So I'm going to add 3 tablespoons and then 1.5 teaspoons of total amount of lemon juice, just to make sure that it is a low pH mixture. Then I'm going to add 3 cups of sugar to this mixture and then start cooking it to make a jam or jelly. So this is my mixture of the lemon juice, sugar and guava pulp, and I'm going to cook this till it is at 218 degrees Fahrenheit. That is because I'm at 1200 feet above sea level, so that would be the temperature at which the jam would be done. You can also use the spoon test to see if it's at the right consistency, but I find that the temperature test is more accurate for me. Okay, so our jam is at a boil. I'm using a screen to prevent it from spilling on me because it's really, as you can see, bubbling away. And we're almost there. So as described in the spoon test, as I pick some jam up with the spoon, cold spoon, and I let it drop, you can see the way it comes together. So that's really the spoon test. And I'm checking the temperature to make sure that it is hitting about 217 to 218 Fahrenheit. I turn the heat off at 217 Fahrenheit because there's definitely a lag with the thermometer and I don't want it to overcook. So plus I'm using an electric coil, and that keeps the jam cooking for a bit longer than on a regular stove. So I'm taking it off the heat now. I've turned it off, and I'm going to fill it into the jars when the jam is hot. So that's the next step. So I've been heating these jars and they're at 180 Fahrenheit. So this is around the temperature at which I want to keep them. And now they're ready to be filled with this hot jam. So I'm just going to show you how I'm going to fill it. And I'll just keep the heat on. And then eventually we're going to bring this up to a boil. So let's see. So I'm going to get my big jar. I'm using the tongs. Bring it here. I'm going to ladle in the jam. And we want to fill it till it only has 1/4 inch of head space. Check. So I can still add more jam in. So now I'm going to use a skewer to remove any air bubbles from the jam, and then I'll check the headspace again, adjust the jam quantity, and then seal it. Let me check the headspace again. I think I can get a little bit out. Just a little bit. Yep, I think that should be good. Because you also want it to seal properly. Just a spoonful more. There we go. Okay. So now before I put the lid on, I'm going to wipe this down really well. Make sure that the rim is nice and clean. So that it seals properly. Take your time, don't rush. Now I have my lids, which I have washed and kept ready. So I'm just going to place this here and not do it too tight, just with 2 fingers, as they say in the literature. So you don't want to screw it on too tight. It has to be just enough so that the air can escape. And then I'm going to put this inside and pull out the next one. And as you can see the bubbles coming out, that's the air escaping from the jar. So now the next one, and as you can see lots of bubbles here that came out. As the third bottle goes in, and then of course I want to adjust this to make sure that our bottles are straight and they don't get tilted or move about when it's being boiled. So there we go. And now we'll bring this to a boil. So the water has come to a rolling boil, and I'm going to turn the heat a little low to maintain this rolling boil for the next 10 minutes. I'm going to process it for 10 minutes and then turn off the heat. It has to be boiling all the time. So it's been 10 minutes. I'm going to turn off the timer. Now I'll set a timer for 5 minutes and just let the jars be in the hot water for 5 minutes before I remove them and place them on a tray. Okay, so I'm going to take this put it here, wipe up all of this excess water, not disturb the jars. You don't want to tilt them. I'm always tempted. We don't want to tilt them. And just let them be now. I should hear a ping soon as they start to cool down. And I'll let them stay like this for 24 hours and then I'll check the seals. So it has been 24 hours and it has cooled down. I'm going to check the lids. So this ring was really loose and I'm checking to see if the lid is really tightly sealed, and it has sealed very well. There's a good head space, not a lot, 1/4 inch head space there. And all of my jars, I'm going to check all of them. And you can see that this part of the lid has sunk in. So that happens when it has sealed well, though that can be only seen on the 1/2 pint jars. So my larger jar has also sealed well. And now I'm going to store these without the rings. And you do this so that if there's spoilage or if the seal is not good, you will know that and it'll come off. So when you store it, you want to store it without the rings. So now I'll put a date on this to remind me of when I had made these, and then I'll put it in the pantry without those rings on. So about 11 of those Tikal guavas yielded 2 1/2 pints and 1 pint jar. That's a total of 4 cups of jam. So that's pretty good, and it'll probably last us for the next year, year and a half. And I'll probably take this one to start using immediately, and the other 2 will go in my pantry. I don't need to refrigerate them.